My name is Micha Ide. I am a farmer, owner of Bright-Eyed Acres with my husband, Andrew, and we are in Pierce County, Ording, over on the west side, and we raise meat animals. And this is Venise, Cunningham, and she owns a farm, Simple Goodness Farm, singular. And her sister have a bottle-to-glass cocktail syrup company that products from her farm go into the syrups. And that's Simple Goodness Sisters. And then combined, we are the managers of a program called Pierce County Fresh, which is a marketing program for Pierce County agriculture. And we are here to talk about branding for farmers. It's not something that a lot of farmers think a lot about when they get started, but obviously it's really important if you're going to be selling your product. And most of us are selling direct to consumer, so we need to learn how to do that really well so that we stand out from the crowd a little bit. So we're going to do a little bit of brainstorming together, but first Venise is going to talk a little bit about some terminology here.
Okay, so first we're going to talk about branding versus marketing. A lot of people think that they're the same, but they're actually quite different. So go ahead. And we're going to talk about branding first. So branding is really the what behind your company. Also note that you can have a personal brand, and so that would be the kind of what behind you. And it's really the identity and the personality of your farm. So a lot of people can talk about their own personality and kind of their own identity and what makes them different and unique from everyone else in this room. And branding is the same thing, but for a company. And so it's really what differentiates your farm or your business from everyone else's that is in your space. And it's what do you want a potential target customer to immediately think of when they think about your farm, when they see or hear your farm name or your logo. So we think about companies, let's say like Ford, because they have a very strong brand, and there are all kinds of feelings and thoughts you may have about Ford when you see that logo. And so that is really the brand. It's all of the what behind a company. So there's kind of 4 components that you can think of when you think about your brand. And the first one is personality. So does your farm have a personality that is unique? And also, for anyone in the room that doesn't have a farm, it can really be any business, organization, anything that you belong to. And then purpose is, what does your farm believe in? Why does it exist? And why should customers get on board and support you? Then experience, how do you want people to feel when they engage with your brand? So whether it's shopping with your brand, coming into your farmer's market booth, clicking purchase on your website, what are the feelings that you want them to walk away with when they are talking to you or engaging with you? And then guidelines, so how do you communicate that personality and purpose? So this kind of goes into really strong brands have a set of colors, they have a set of fonts. Like if you think about Target, you know it's a Target, it's red and it's white. And like you instantly, even if you see something that's not Target's, but it looks a lot like Target's, you're gonna automatically think of Target, right? So those are kind of what encompasses a brand. So really quick, we're gonna do a really quick brainstorming session about what is your farm's brand. So if you guys can just kind of maybe raise your hand and a couple of brave souls, tell me just a couple of words that stick out around your brand. So for one, I have a Simple Goodness Farm, so one of mine is right in the name, and it's simple. Anyone else?
Serene.
Serene. She's going to write them. Anyone else?
Okay. Mine is ethics.
Anyone else? Yeah. Authentic. That's a good one. Organic. Yeah. Local. Anyone else? Sustainable. Okay. Brand can also be colors. So if you're thinking about like, I like to use the color green on my flyers, or part of our brand is very black and white. Everything that we have is black and white. We're opening a retail store and we just painted the entire thing white and it has black trim. So that is definitely part of our brand. Anyone have colors as part of their brand?
Light blue and kind of a grass green.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty typical for farms. Some green and some blue. Okay, so that's a good start. You can go really, really deep. So this is an exercise that my sister and I are actually in the process of doing, of like really digging into what our brand is and coming up with 100 different words that we want our brand to encompass and then boiling it down further. Go ahead. Okay, so the marketing is the how, and it really is the practice of using a set of tools to introduce your target audience to your brand and then sell your products. So it is the strategy behind your brand. So I like to point this out because if you don't know what your brand is, it's going to be awfully hard to have a marketing strategy, right? So if you don't have a very clear vision of what your brand represents and what you want your customers to know and feel about your company, then it's harder to create the how behind that brand. So in terms of marketing, there's a lot of tools that allow us to do the how. So these are some of the ones that we use on our farm, and then Misha's going to go over the ones that she uses on her farm in a little bit more depth, but I'm just going to talk about a couple of the ones that I use. So we do a lot of social media marketing, and I know that social media takes up a ton of time. Trust me, because I do a ton of it. But it works for us, and so that's why it's number one on my list. So we use Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. I will admit Twitter is last on the list because it is like not the one that I use a lot of, but it's on there because my next biggest one is press. And so if you are doing any kind of press, then you need a Twitter account. And so press has been huge for us, which I think is very different than a lot of other farms also. So we have a newsletter. We also have a blog, and we reach out and we connect with other blogs is really what that's about. We have our own blog on our own website, but other blogs have been huge for us. Newspapers are really big for us. Radio, we've only done like one radio thing, but podcasts are kind of like the new radio. We do a lot of podcasts, and I love podcasts. They've been really fantastic for getting I will start by saying Simple Goodness might be a little bit different for a lot of folks in that we can ship. So we have a product that can ship nationwide, and so that's how podcasts have helped me reach that bigger audience, because you can listen to a podcast from anywhere. So email marketing, next big one. We could do a lot better on that. It's one of the things that we're working on right now. Website also huge. Can't really do any of the other ones without your website. And another one that we're working on revamping right now. Underneath our website, we have a blog, and then we also do have a store. Then we do shows and markets. So for a lot of farms, this is one of your biggest ones, is your market booth. We do some farmers markets, and then we do a lot of holiday shows because our product is something that people gift a lot. So actually right now is a really, really busy market time for us. We do print, so we have mailers, and actually at the end of all of the tables, and you can kind of pass it down because I didn't bring enough for every person, but that goes out in every single box that I ship, and it goes out in all of our gift packs. So if you gift one of our things, then whoever is gifting it will get one of those, and you'll see that it shows you how to engage with our brand in new ways, and most of them are all online. And then sales calls. So marketing, I think a lot of people tend to think of marketing in a digital sense right now, but sales calls are huge, especially if you're wholesaling. So actually showing up to a restaurant and saying, hey, is a big one. Charitable contributions is a big one for us. So we're actually right now, a lot of the schools are doing PTA, fundraisers, and so I will gift, but with charitable contributions, every single time I gift something, they get one of these. so that then that person can go, or if they don't win the basket or the silent auction item, they can pick up those, they can look at it. We still, even though we can ship nationwide, most of our sales come from people in our community. And so they recognize us. They've started to recognize us in the store, and they're like, oh, you're the syrup girl. And it's because you'll also see that our face is like plastered on almost everything as well. And then events. So we do quite a few events.
I want to know who my audience is. So how many of you are farmers? How many of you own your farm? Not the land, but the business. Okay, fine. With the bank. It counts. Okay, how many of you are vegetable row croppers? Mixed. Okay, livestock, eggs. What else? What else is there? Who do I have? Fruit. Okay. Awesome. Any flowers? Okay, good one. Does that cover pretty much everybody? So most of you are like me in that we really don't ship our product, right? And so we're trying to do very direct marketing. So I'm going to go over some examples from my farm. Clickety-click for me. Okay. And then we were going to do a little bit more, potentially, we're brainstorming with you guys. So for me, my brand, the words, I wish I had a clicker. So my tagline is ethically raised meat, better flavor, better nutrition, better peace of mind. So all of my keywords are right there in my tagline. Not to say that you need a tagline, but even if you develop a tagline that you never share, just to finding some of those keywords that make you unique. So I've got taste in there, like flavor obviously is huge if you're buying fresh local produce product at all. Health, right? The nutrition of my product is superior to that you can find in a grocery store. And then ethics are a really big part of what we do because we raise animals and what we do involves slaughter, right? And so we want to make sure that the way we raise our animals and the way we slaughter is something that people can feel good about. So goals. So another thing with marketing is you have to have goals. Why are you doing all this marketing? The big ones are, for a lot of new farms, it's going to be getting customers. For me, where I'm at right now, it's mostly retaining my customer base, but I did move. So my husband and I moved farms. We bought a farm 2 years ago, and so we're also trying to grow our market into our current location while retaining those customers we had a couple hours north. So we do some deliveries. Yeah, so are there any other goals in here that might be different? Oh, yeah. Anybody? I mean, those are like the pretty obvious ones. Do you have any, Venise?
You touched on it, but this is my big one.
Customer acquisition. That's a fancy word for it. Yeah.
Saving time.
Saving time. So becoming more efficient. Yeah. Education. That's huge. That is huge. Why are people going to spend more on your product? You have to tell them why. Does that cover it?
I think for some farms, especially commodity farmers, it's around advocacy. So it's education, but then also advocating for their industry or their crop as a whole.
Yeah. Advocacy. I'm going to repeat it for the video camera. Okay.
So one of the goals we always have is we're trying to expand so that more and more people are out there seeing it. So trying to get the right hashtags. So a goal anytime we're doing is how do we grow our likes, get more and more likes, get more and more shares, get more and more comments, get more and more interactions.
Visibility. Broader visibility.
Yep.
Yeah. Those are all great goals. So then we want to talk a little bit about who's your target, right? Everybody in this room is going to have a specific customer base. You cannot appeal to everybody. There's just too many different kinds of people in the world, and so you kind of have to narrow it down so that you're not just shooting in the dark. You want to target specific people. So for me, I've got foodies, I've got people who are health conscious, people who care about animal husbandry ethics. I have a niche market. We produce halal chickens, so right there I have an entire Muslim community that's underserved as far as local food is concerned. Unfortunately, in some sense, I have to target people who can afford my product. And that's a greater conversation about why is my product so expensive. Like, why does it have to be expensive to produce good food? But I can't really waste time targeting somebody who I know can't afford my product, right? I wish I could share it with them, but at the same time, like, we need to save time and be efficient, and I need people who actually can buy my product, except at the farmer's market where I can accept EBT, and that's wonderful. What was that last one? People who want to support local agriculture. So that's actually like a huge growing trend, which hopefully a lot of you have noticed, and is maybe why you're able to have a business. Does anyone have any specific targets that they already are aware of?
Identify my ideal customer. So that's my target. So my ideal customer quickly is ages 42 to 48, female, disposable income, health conscious. I'm a man, so this has been a challenge to me. And a book I'd recommend, Why She Buys. So in my case.
In this culture, predominantly the people buying food for the family are women. And so whether or not you want to skew your marketing in that direction, I mean, you can be really cynical about it or just realize like that's kind of the way it is, right? I don't know about you, but I do most of the grocery shopping in my family. So the other thing I want to talk about is this idealism. So is there anybody in here who's a brand new farmer, like just starting out? Like there's this is good. You all are experienced, so you'll know that this is really not just what farming looks like, right? This is very sweet, and we wish it was like this all the time. But honestly, there's a lot of this, right? That's my Bitmoji, my wintertime Bitmoji. You're a startup. I mean, even unless you've been doing this for decades, you're a startup, and you're going to spend a lot of time marketing in order to sell what you grow. What is the point of growing a bunch of stuff if you can't sell it, right? So you kind of have to have that mentality, and you have to budget time for this because it's a really important part of your business model. So the other thing is that a lot of the people that are buying our product are not farmers. They don't really want to see this side of farming. They want to see the pretty picture side. So you have to keep that in mind too when you're marketing. Tell your story. People want to engage with farmers. That's kind of why we're having a moment, I think, is that people spend so much time in an office that there's this like idealism of living off the land, working in the dirt, and so they get kind of starry-eyed when you talk to them about the farm. And we'll touch on that a little bit more with like the pictures that you're showing. But this is a really, 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 really basic. Okay, show of hands. How many of you have your own website? How many of you rely on Facebook? Nobody? Only Facebook. Facebook is your website. Okay, a few. How many of you have nothing? All right, some hands didn't go up. So what am I missing? No web presence. All of you have web presence. Anybody? Anybody else? What am I missing? You got to have one. You got to have a website, you guys, and I'm going to show you why. So this is what pops up on my Facebook right now. It's not static, right? If you know how Facebook works, it's like constantly updating. Any new posts I do are going to go to the top of my page. Well, I'm not always posting the right things. That picture down there, I don't grow squash. But I took a picture of it because it was funny because it's me trying to garden. There's obviously too many squash for one family. But somebody who navigates to my Facebook page is going to think like, oh, they also grow summer squash for some reason. No. Also, my farm moved, and no matter what I do, Facebook will not update my map. It's got my address right, but not the map. So how many people are going to get confused trying to find my farm just by relying on Facebook? Facebook, like, you can't tell them to change your map. They don't check emails. There's no way to get in touch with them. So it's really important to have a website because what you put on your website is exactly what you want people to see. It's going to be your best pictures, ideally professional, if you can. We'll talk about that a little bit. And all of the right words are going to be there. The first thing people see are going to be really the things you want them to know about you, right? Whereas Facebook is kind of constantly changing, and honestly, all of us post things to Facebook that really probably aren't like always the nicest picture or whatever. So I want to talk about metrics just a little bit before I get into photos. For my farm, just so you have some background on what we do. So we have about 1,400 people liking us on Facebook. Instagram, I have almost 2,000. I mean, these are pretty small by some standards. MailChimp, something we'll talk about a little bit. So this is my email marketing. I have a mailing list that is right under 2,000, and MailChimp now starts to charge you at 2,000. So I'm like, right. But I will pay them when they start charging me, and I'll talk about that. There's something called Google My Business. So if you guys don't have this, get it. Basically, it's just like a mini website on Google where people can like leave reviews, and it'll tell them how to get to your farm and that kind of stuff. And then Weebly is the platform that I used to build my website, and I did build my own website, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And in the last 30 days, I checked my metrics. I had over 2,200 page views. 530 of those were unique visits. So that's 530 different times people have gone to my website in the past 30 days. Not necessarily different people, but different visits. Partly because I sell turkeys and it's Thanksgiving. People are looking. So photos are super, super, super important. And Venise, if you have anything, chime in. So the target audience, which we talked about a little bit, even if we look at all of these targets here, mostly we're talking about people who are not farming, who have visions of what farming is and how sweet it is and how wonderful our lives are. I mean, obviously this is like kind of a false narrative. You all know this. But you want your pictures to tell a story. So the reason I put these 3 pictures up here, these are from my farm. Turkeys obviously are just interesting, but when I look at that photo, it's kind of hard to see, but what I see is grass. These turkeys are outside on grass, and it's evident in that photo. And then the other 2 photos are farmers interacting with their livestock that show the care that we put into our animals. But I know a lot of you aren't farming meat, and so I have some of my favorite, show that hashtag farm life, guys. So these are some of this is Radical Roots Farm in Snohomish, and they're not here, unfortunately, but probably one of the best vegetable marketers that I have seen as far as quality of photos. So I would recommend following them on Facebook or Instagram just to get some inspiration. So these photos here on the left, for example, obviously you could just throw some peppers on a table and say, look at my pretty peppers. But in this photo, you get a hand. You get a bucket full of peppers behind it, and you get a dog nose. Like, how great. You can get the story of this picture, right? Bunch of carrots. Look how beautiful those carrots are. But also look at the field. She's standing in the field. She has gorgeous vegetables all around her. And then they're transplanting kale, which is maybe monotonous, but there's a funny dog in the ground. And then in behind, you can see the farmer doing the work. So these photos really tell a lot more of a story. And they make you, like we talked about how the emotion that you get, they make you feel good. And then, of course, if you have a cute baby, shameless marketing.
I am so guilty of this.
Yeah.
I have 2. So.
It works. So if you have photos on your website, try to back up. You have to have photos on your website. Make them good. Try to get professional photos if you can. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be free. But one thing I want to talk about is words. And so this is something I learned in my marketing job that I had before I became a farmer. And there was this example where we were selling a product that another competitor had, but our product, I said to my manager, our product is cheaper. And she said, no, our product is not cheap. It's a better value. Because cheap is a negative term, right? And so even just starting to think that way about what you're selling, most of us farmers don't have that problem because nothing we sell is cheap compared to anything else. It's usually more expensive. But then think about how you would talk about that, right? Not more expensive, but what are you getting? Why are you getting? Something I say a lot at the farmers market is you get what you pay for, right? So words really matter. Focus on your strengths. Another example I like to use is a farm that I was appalled when I went to their website, and on the homepage of their website, they talked about how they really wanted to feed organic feed, but they just couldn't afford it. And so right now they were just feeding conventional, but like they really wanted to get back into organic. Well, like, wow. Cool. It's really great to have goals, but you don't need to tell your customers what you're doing poorly or what you think you could be doing better. Instead, you could say something like, we give our animals a great quality of life. Focus on what you're doing right? And not to say lie. Obviously, don't lie. And if people want to engage and ask you what kind of feed you're feeding, tell them and tell them why. But that's a one-on-one conversation that you're trying to communicate to somebody directly. So focus on your strengths. And then sometimes marketers are called spin doctors. And like, I love and hate that because we're not trying to lie again, but we are trying to focus on our strengths. And so the handout that you guys have, I talk about the top half of that is something that I wrote up about ground sow. So we have breeding pigs, and when they get to the end of their reproductive life, what do you do with them? Well, for us, it makes the most sense to turn them into meat that we then sell. But in a lot of people's minds, like, that's an older animal, it's lived a long time, you can't really just turn it into regular pork chops because it's tough and it's big and all this and that. But the way that I wrote about it, and is the way that I feel about it, like, by convincing people to buy what we did is we ground all the meat into sausage, convincing them that they were helping us further our ethics by buying and eating this animal that gave us so many pigs over the years. And so where somebody might see that as like an inferior product, which is actually not, but you have to tell them why, right? And so think about those things when you're developing your marketing. Back to the photos. So, okay, hire it out. Or trade, right? This is a really big one for me. I built my own website, so I didn't have to pay for that labor, but I had to learn it, and that was something that someone taught me, and I traded for meat. My logo, a friend of mine designed because she wanted to support us. That's the other thing, is you're doing something really cool that a lot of your friends are really excited about. So if you have a friend who's a graphic artist, or if you know someone who's in graphic design school, or if you have a friend who's not a professional photographer, but they have a nice camera, like, these are all things that you have to start leaning on people for, because we also all don't have time to do it ourselves. But you can't skimp on these things. You got to have a logo. You got to have nice photos. Find people who have these strengths and either hire them if you can afford it, or find people who are willing to trade. They do exist.
The photo on my card, it was free, the whole photo shoot. And now we use it all the time.
Yeah. And so we have had, this is a professional photographer we traded. Like, we've had several professional photographers. We have animals, so people like to take photos of them too, but they were all happy to take meat and trade.
I will also say that the photographer that did the one that's on the tables, she reached out to me. And that was through Instagram. So she saw my Instagram. She was new. She moved up from California and said, I just love farms and I just want to follow you around and take photos. And will that be okay? And I was like, yep, that will be fine. And so that's what she did. And I got like 100 photos that I can use all over the place in one day. And I just did my farm chores.
Yeah, they really are out there. We've had a lot of people requesting that as well. Website design is a really important one. So the example here I'm showing you is actually one that I did for another farm. I now don't have really a lot of time to be doing this for other farmers, but I did do quite a lot of website design for other farmers as a side gig. And I am by no means a professional. I just learned how to use one basic software program, website design program, and now I'm good at it, I guess. But these programs exist that don't require you to know HTML or coding or anything. They're like drag and drop. They are time consuming though. So if you don't have time, and let's be honest, you don't have time, hire it out or trade it out, or find someone like me who knows how to do it and is willing to do it for like $500 or something over the winter when they're not so busy. Same with the logo. Okay, capture those emails. So MailChimp, does anybody in here use MailChimp? Awesome. How many of you have a button on your website that people can automatically log in, sign up, join your mailing list? Boy, that's a time saver, right? Let them do it. Let them do all the work. And you can also embed that into your Facebook page. So I have a join my mailing list button on my Facebook page. 2,000
email list is incredible, Misha.
Oh,
like, very incredible. I'm jealous. I do not have that many.
There's reason for that a little bit, and I'm going to talk about that. It's MailChimp fire. This is maybe like a little bit of a gray area, you guys. I'm not going to lie. So on my website, I have a contact us form, and when they fill that out, it sends me an email. But they're required to give me their email address to do this, and I add them to my mailing list. Technically, they're supposed to give you permission. I feel like they're contacting me because they're curious about something, and then I write them back, and I say, cool, I'm adding you to my mailing list. And every once in a while, like yesterday, someone says, don't do that. And then I say, cool. But usually I do. And then they can opt out. I know that's shady, and like I get annoying emails that I wish I didn't get, and then I opt out. But what you're doing is kind of unique. You're not like trying to sell garbage to somebody who doesn't want it. You're talking to people who are like reaching out to you because of what you're doing. It's unique. They probably want to know more about what you're doing. This really is what has built my mailing list, because a lot of people will contact you, especially if you have a unique product, but they might not go through the steps of signing up for your mailing list.
This is exactly why you should have a website and not just Facebook, because on Facebook you do not collect those emails when they direct message you. So you would have to do all of your marketing through Facebook.
Yeah. So I do manually enter all of these addresses into my mailing list. I've kind of slowed down on that because I'm right at that threshold of having to pay MailChimp, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that right now. So they sit in my inbox with a purple star. And then the other thing about mailing, so when I try to advise people not to do regular newsletters. I get it if you're doing a CSA and you want to have like what's in the box. And then MailChimp, you can do templates, which is nice. And then you can just change a few bits. But if you're committing to like a regular newsletter, it could be very stressful and very time consuming. So we try to limit it to just when we have a call to action. So I'm almost never going to send a newsletter that's just like news from the farm, because people honestly don't read emails anyway, and they don't have a lot of time. And so if you send a lot of emails that don't really give them a lot of relevant information, they might stop reading your emails. So my emails always include something like order pork, right? So that there's a reason that they open that email. They realize that there's like some benefit to having read the email, because for me, like my pork sells out really fast. Well, if you don't read the email, you snooze, you lose.
This is something that I think is hard for some people to grasp, because we get so much email, and a lot of people, especially like I'm like me, and I don't like to shop online. I'm like a weird person, and I like to like go and like physically pick up the item, and so I struggle with this. So it was a little bit hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that like people want you to sell to them, and they want to buy from you, and they don't just want to read about your farm without having something to do after the fact. And so I would agree that if you're spending the time on any marketing, there should be some sort of call to action to continue to engage with you. Otherwise, it is just kind of a waste of time.
And I mean, that's why Instagram is so popular, because now it's basically just look at this great photo. Maybe there's a caption, but there's not a lot to read. It's it's low commitment time, right? Low time commitment. All right. Talk about farmers market booths. So how many of you sell at farmers markets? Okay. This is really important. You can't just show up and throw a cooler on the table without anything beautiful and expect people to stop and talk to you. It just isn't going to happen. There's so much beautiful stuff to look at a farmer's market that's what they're going for. So this, again, is Radical Roots. This is part of your brand as well. So this guy is very neat. Like, look how neat that is. But also notice the colors. So he might have multiple different varieties of green shoots, but he's got them split up with the purple. He's got 2 different red tomatoes split up by the yellow. So trying to make visual interest and then also vertical display. You can't just have everything flat on your table. You have to do vertical display. Mix up the colors. Yeah, said all that. Oh,
Also, his signage is amazing.
yeah, he's got a great logo. Make things look full. I mean, you've all experienced this where like you maybe only have one bunch of carrots left. And unless you're like really popular or whatever, those carrots, they probably won't sell, because people are gonna be like, why do they only have one bunch of carrots? You have to have like a very full booth when you have produce. So this is another angle from that booth. Like, look how high he stacks stuff. Obviously, people have to be able to reach it. I probably couldn't reach those turnips up top there. And then this is another farmer that I want to show who's also very good, but you can see that the style is like slightly different. He's a little bit more casual, a little bit more like maybe what we would expect of like a farmer, to have a little bit more of a rustic vibe, but everything is still very mixed in as far as colors and varieties. And then another great thing about this farmer is he has a really cool apron. And this is something that I don't think a lot of us think about, what we wear to market. Well, if you have something as silly as an apron that you wear every single time, that's branding, right? That's, oh, Vince, he's the guy in the cool apron. So it's something small like that, even if it's like a special hat. And I'm not great at this. Venise is cool. She wore her shirt today. I didn't. But ideally, you have something that just makes you look professional, but also stand out.
So my cousin is my graphic designer, and she does it for a living. And she's constantly reminding us, she's like, slap that logo on everything. And I'm just constantly reminding myself of that. T-shirts, shoes, tape, pricing labels, everything.
So this is an example from me. Because I sell frozen meat, I don't have beautiful things to put on my table. Like frozen pork chops just don't look good, you guys. But the one on the right with the checkerboard is earlier in the season. The one on the left is later. I'm kind of still working on streamlining. I realize now that I need like a solid color tablecloth because there's just too much going on. But you can see all the different colors and levels, and I'm still trying to get people to come look at my booth. So I bring a plant. I don't sell plants, but I bring a plant. I bring cards. My business cards are vertical, which just makes them a little bit unique. I have marketing. I have a magazine that we were featured in Seattle Magazine one time, so that's there. I just have signage. But then you can see now over here on this left-hand side, I've got chalkboards up with my list of everything that I sell. Because also when people walk up to me, they don't even know what I'm selling half the time. So now at least they can look and be like, oh, she's got cuts of pork. And so making it easy for your customer to identify what you're selling, which obviously if you have fruit or vegetables, it's very clear what you're selling.
Also, pricing.
Pricing is really important. I'm sure a lot of you struggle with that when you have all these different crops you're trying to sell. And then this is something that a lot of vegetable farmers don't take advantage of. Put a clipboard, ask people if they want to join your mailing list. And it's like a really low commitment from them to sign up. They might talk to you and like you, but not actually want to buy anything. So they'll feel a little guilty and they'll sign up for your mailing list.
Absolutely. That is your call to action. Your call to action cannot only be to purchase something, because not every single person is going to purchase something, but you should get something out of every single person that visits your booth. So, and give them something. So you should be giving them your brand awareness, something, a short snippet, your elevator pitch, so they walk away with something. And then hopefully, if you're good, you walk away with something. And if that's just their email, then that's just their email. But that's a big piece, because sometimes they're not ready to buy, especially if it's something like Micha, you have a higher price point. So some people are not going to the farmer's market to spend, whatever it is on a package, but they'll go home and they'll talk to their significant other and talk about it, and then you've gotten their email, and they might even forget. Like, they'll go home and they'll do all of the other things, but you've gotten their email, and so next week when you send out your email, then they're like, oh yeah, that lady at the farmer's market. That's why it's so important. It feels kind of salesy, but that's what you have to do.
When you do they sign up, they click the website, somehow they sign up. Do you have the free recipe book, that kind of a thing? What's the word? There's a term for it. That you're giving them.
Yeah,
something.
it's your hook. Like,
your hook, yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
do you do that automatically? Is that automated on your website where you're sending out? Like, I have hard-boiled eggs. How do you actually peel pastured hard-boiled eggs? Like, there's 2-3 tricks, No, it's email.
It's a digital
PDF. It's a very, but it's all graphics and.
It's a fantastic idea, and it's honestly what we're working on right now. So we don't, but we should, and so that's part of this quarter. My sister and I are going to come up with that, because it's that same thing. You're asking for an email, and in return, you're going to give them something. What are you going to give them? If you can immediately give them something, then they're way more. How many people have done that? Like, you've been on a website and it's like a list, like, sign up for a list of 5 things that can make your whatever better, right? And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, or a discount. Sign up for our newsletter and you get a 20% discount emailed to you right that second. Like, that's how we get all of our junk mail, right? Like, so by putting it in there.
I want to caution a little bit. So I don't have one of those, partly because I do that for the discount and then I immediately unsubscribe. So I don't want people to sign up just because they want a discount or. Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
Ours will not be a discount either. Ours will be something tangible that they can get, so we do cocktails. Most of the people who are buying our stuff are putting this into cocktail drinks. And so it will be like an exclusive cocktail recipe.
And I think that this is something that is built into MailChimp. It can be done where everyone who signs up automatically gets a specific welcome email. Mm-hmm. I don't have that set up. Right now I'm focused on call to action, and I'm sold out of meat. And so I don't want people to get an email and then again have, what's the point? But I think that's a really good point and something to look into. Printed marketing materials, again, it's really easy and nice for someone at the market to grab something and take it with them. So even if you're doing vegetables and you think you don't have anything to put in a flyer, like, sure, there's something about you that's unique. Tell your story, take some pictures of your produce. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that. It's kind of in a weird spot. So the reason I put it there, you have to have a phone number. I know we're getting away from that, but you are going to have some customers who might be a little older or might just not use email very much or social media. You have to have a phone number. A lot of people call me, and I don't want them calling my personal phone number. So I got what's called a Mighty Call. I think you can use Google Voice now too, but when I looked into it, I couldn't pick my area code, and I wanted to pick a local area code. So I signed up for something called Mighty Call. I'm grandfathered in, so I pay like $15 a month. I think it's gone up. It's kind of more than what I need for because this allows you to like delegate different phones and things if you have like a staff. But people only get this phone number, and then it gets routed to my cell phone anyway, but then I'm keeping my cell phone number private, and I screen my calls like crazy. But in the beginning, I was answering every single phone call. Even if the answer was no, I don't have it. You have to do that in the beginning because we'll talk about customer service. But now I'm able to only respond to people if I have something actual relevant information or a sales opportunity. But if you have marketing materials that someone can grab and go, it's great, right? They're taking your information with them. I have these insulated tote bags with my logo on them. I sell them. So it's great for their meat. It keeps it cold, but also they're walking around advertising my farm for me. Yes, I have a unique email. That is required. You must have mine's a Gmail. It can be a Gmail, but it should be I have 4 email addresses because my life is a little bit complicated. But I have a farm email address, right? At gmail.com. I also have farmers@brightideacres.com, but that gets forwarded to my Gmail because I can't check multiple things. Yeah. Why do you have a Gmail? I have a Gmail because I know how to use it. It's that simple. Some of these older email platforms I just think are clunky, and I just am comfortable with Gmail. If you have a professional website, like I have Gmail professional, you can have it be at brightideacres.com.
But you have to pay for it.
You do have to pay for that. So, and I do pay for it. I don't really need it necessarily.
I also have Gmail, and the reason why I also like it better personally, but it also, most people have Gmail nowadays. Like, it's definitely the number one platform. And so I like to know what my customer experience is. So like when I'm sending test mails, I know what it looks like in Gmail. And when I'm looking at my list, most of my peeps have Gmail. I don't know if you guys have this, but I know Misha doesn't. We were talking about this earlier. I have the 3 bucket email. So it's like primary email, and then like social email, and then promotions email. And so it automatically filters things. So if it's a like Instagram or a Facebook update, it goes into my social, and I never check that folder. Same with promotions. I get a lot of spam mail. And so anything that looks like a promotion goes into that. Sometimes you can miss emails, and so some people turn that option off, but Gmail turns it automatically on, and I never went and turned it off, and I get so much that I don't want to turn it off. And so having a Gmail allows me to test whether or not my emails are going into the promotions folder or if they're going into the primary folder. And then I know, like when I send it, because I'm on my own email list, and so then I'm getting those emails, and that allows me to test it that way. I will tell you that most MailChimps, because I know MailChimp is like most people don't use MailChimp to send normal emails. So a lot of them get routed to the promotions tab. But then I know. And not everyone has a promotions tab, but if you do, then some of your customers may be missing your emails because they're not checking their promotions tab.
Yeah, we could really get nitty gritty about some of this stuff. But anyway, if you're going to send out a trifold or something like this, on the back of your handout or the second page of the handout is like some of the resources that I like to use. So pretty inexpensive printing. The point is you want to tell your story so that people learn a little bit about you and what makes you special. We're going to talk about social media briefly. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. Venise is definitely we have very different marketing and different products, and so we use social media very differently. Storytelling is my number one motivation. Be #authentic. I put barf because I hate that. Right? It's so overused, but like it really used to mean something, and it should still mean something, right? Like for me, a big part of why I have Instagram is to share with other farmers, particularly about the struggles that I'm going through, and to just kind of relate to my community. It's becoming a little bit more of a sales channel in some ways, but that's not my primary focus. it's becoming a little bit more of a focus, and Venise has been helping me. Facebook for me is my biggest sales channel, and part of that is my target. Instagram is growing in popularity with people in a certain demographic, but for the people who typically have deeper pockets, more disposable income, are looking to buy what I'm selling, more of them are on Facebook. And Facebook also is designed for business. It really is. Like, there's really great tools built into it. I can do targeted ads based on demographics. I could send an ad specifically to women between the ages of 42 and 46 who live 30 miles from my farm. You can do that on Facebook. I think if you have a business Instagram account, you can start doing those things now. I don't have a business Instagram account. That only shows on the back end, so nobody can really tell. On Facebook, you have to have a separate page for your farm. I don't want anyone setting up their farm as if it's a person. Some people used to do that. I think people are kind of getting away from that now. But make sure you have a page, a company page. It's free, but it still makes it look much more polished, I guess. So I just talked about that. Okay, and so one thing that I experience on social media that Venise doesn't, and maybe a lot of you probably won't, is trolls. That's why I have the Fremont troll. If you guys have never been to Fremont in Seattle, there's this statue of a troll under the bridge. That's why it's there. So veganism and vegetarianism are becoming very mainstream, which is great because I support anybody who thinks twice about what they put in their mouth, right? Because what I do involves people making important decisions about what they put in their body. But there's also been a lot of trolling that happens. And because I post a lot of animal content, sometimes it's pictures from a harvest. I try not to get too graphic because I also know my audience, right? But some people don't want to see it, or they just want to instigate. So I do have trolls. Some of the examples, I had a announcement when my baby was born, and I had somebody get on there and say, "Oh, great, are you now going to raise it out and slaughter it and sell it to the highest bidder?" They got my baby announcement. Okay. So I have 4 techniques for dealing. There's actually 5. Someone told me a 5th one last night, which never occurred to me, but just delete the comment. You can do that. I've never done that. Radio silence is probably often the best one. Just ignore it. Snark, that's how I responded to that one because I just couldn't help it. I was very hormonal. I said, like, thanks for the well wishes. And then rage and fury, which is often like what I really want to do, but that's what they want you to do, right? They want to get into a big pissing match, so don't do that. The best one for me has been thoughtful engagement. And so the second thing on that handout I gave you, the second half, is a separate post I wrote in response to a troll. And it's long, and there's a lot of words in there. But if you read it, and then you read at the bottom, my statistics from that post, I had like 62 comments. Like, people were really engaging in me. And it started a whole conversation. And it became something that, like, I just felt like it did a really good thing for me and my fellow farmers and my business, and that people were like willing to have these conversations versus just yelling at each other. And so I try to do that. Of course, I don't get slammed that much with trolls. If it was like an everyday thing, I would not have the time for that. But there is something new. Is anybody in here doing livestock? I forget. I know you have eggs. Yeah. So you guys might experience this, or you might see this if you do Instagram. If anyone finds any picture offensive for any reason, they can flag it and mark it as sensitive content. And then that photo will automatically become blurred, and everybody else who goes to see it will have to click to accept that it's a sensitive photo.
I will also say that sometimes that is just an automatic, like they're using photo recognition to try to flag those automatically, because I just posted a picture of me watching beets. Beets are terrible. They always get flagged. And so it got flagged automatically. And my whole audience was like, of course, like it was almost great because everyone's like, ooh, I want to see this sensitive content. And it was just me watching beets. And so then I like posted another thing right after, and I was like cutting beets. So of course it looks like there's like blood all over the cutting board, and there's like a big knife, and it also got flagged. And I don't have any trolls, so I know it wasn't somebody who.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
But also, like, really sad.
So don't take too much offense. It might just be Facebook.
But also, like, that's really sad that, like, cutting something on a cutting board that's got blood involved becomes sensitive content, right? As a meat producer, I don't think that blood in a certain context is offensive. But a lot of times it is, just, for me, somebody clicking because I'm now having pictures of like nursing piglets getting marked as sensitive content. The thing that's frustrating for me about that is that you can't undo it, and you can't see if someone did click it, who it was. If it's that same person clicking my photos every single time, I have no idea. It could be. I have like maybe just one very active troll. But it preempts me from thoughtful engagement, which is the thing I hate the most about social media, is that it can be so anonymous, right? So that's why you have to have this balancing act of like how much marketing you're actually doing on social media versus in person. Most of us are going to be doing most of our sales in person, educating face to face where you can have a conversation with people. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, this is my last slide. It doesn't really matter how great of a marketer you are. This is maybe a little outdated. I don't know if you guys remember the Fire Festival. Really great marketing, really crappy product, right? I don't think we have to worry too much about that in this room, but obviously you have to back up what you're saying with what you're selling. So not just the great product, but your customer service. So start learning the names of your regulars because, again, for me, this is my biggest goal right here, right now. Sorry, which one? Retaining my customer base. Because if I get one loyal family who's buying enough chickens to feed their family for a year after year after year, that is a lot easier for me than trying to get one new customer every week to buy one chicken.
Customer acquisition is expensive.
Yeah. So by learning their names, asking about their families, smiling, like I did not want to smile. Look at me. I was so pregnant. But I'm at the farmer's market and no one is going to come talk to me if I look grumpy sitting on a cooler with my head in my phone. You have to engage with your customers. If there's an issue, make things right. In the beginning especially, customers always right. Even if they're just being ridiculous, smile, be nice, try to make it right, do what you can. Because word of mouth, for what we do, word of mouth is probably going to be your number one. Right? You're going to have friends, like you want someone's friends telling someone to tell their friends about you, and they'll tell their friends because they'll try your product. If you have one bad experience, that will travel a lot farther than your good experiences because people like to complain. So if you have a bad attitude to a customer, it will get around. So try to keep that in mind. That was supposed to be the farmer emoji. I think this computer is a little old school. So it's like a prairie girl with some wheat. But that's the main thing, right? Like what you're doing is really unique. You all know that. You're doing it because you love it. No one is here because they want to make, or they think they're going to make a ton of money. So use that to your advantage. Sell what you're doing. Don't just sell your product, but sell your story. And that's what people are really wanting. They want to connect. So now, Venise, I'm going to hand it over.
Cool. All right. So we just talked a lot about all these different tools that you can use. I have given this talk a couple of times, or versions of marketing and farm, and like there's always the one person in the room that's like, cool, like Instagram sounds great, but like how do you make any money? Because it takes a lot of time, right? Especially, so I will just start by saying I love Instagram. I do 90% of our marketing on Instagram, and so some of this, we named it social media because I'm going to talk quite a bit about Instagram. But remember that Instagram is owned by Facebook. So they're really one and the same. It's just a different look and feel. But in terms of if you have a business Instagram page, all of the same tools you actually do, like when I create an Instagram ad, I do it in Facebook. So it's all very similar, all the same tools. It's just look a different feel and target market. So also I connect my Instagram to my Facebook. So everything that I'm posting on my Instagram is also posted in my Facebook. You can do it. There's a lot of YouTube videos, so I'm not going to show you how to do it. But it's fairly easy. And then you can do both at the same time. Okay, so, Okay, here's your screwdriver, right? So this is like a tool. Instagram is literally just like a screwdriver. On its own, if you're just posting and you're just taking a picture, putting it on there with a caption, then you are using your tool just like you could a screwdriver. So this is the bits that you can put on a screwdriver, right? So within Instagram, there's all of these different tools within one tool that makes that tool more effective. So I'm gonna use Facebook also, at Facebook and Instagram, because they're owned by the same company. A lot of these are the same. Micha was talking about stories, so I finally got her on the story bandwagon in Instagram. How many use Instagram? Just whether it's for business or personal? Cool. So it used to be that like 5 hands would go up, right? Like not very many people use Instagram, and it was usually like, I have a younger sister, she's 17, and so it was like only her. She's the one who showed me how to use Instagram. And so it was like this idea that like no one who's actually buying things, it's all the young kids. And now that's Snapchat. Like everyone's like, I don't use a Snapchat because it's only 17-year-olds on there, which isn't true either, but I don't use Snapchat. But that you would only use the post and the caption, and then that was like, okay, cool. And then people started using hashtags. Who knows what a hashtag is or use hashtags? Okay, so cool. Fewer hands, but they use them. Hashtags I like to describe as basically a big file cabinet, and it's how Instagram files content. So if you were to open up the file drawer and look up the folder that said farm life, then you could look at all of the things in that folder. So it's just like a big old file cabinet. So when I am searching for content, like let's say I'm looking for a recipe for dinner, I could look under the hashtag dinner recipes, and it would show me all of the people who tagged their pictures dinner recipes, and then I could get all of that great information. It's how I find new accounts, and it's how most people find new accounts to follow and engage with. There's also stories. So stories is kind of like Instagram's response to Snapchat, and it's you create a video of yourself. It stays on the platform for 24 hours and then it goes away. And the video can only be like, I think it's 20 seconds. And so you get a short video, you say what you're gonna say, it stays up for 24 hours and then it goes away. It's great because it doesn't have to be perfect. I like stories. Most of my content is shared via stories. And because it's 30 seconds, I get on, I get off, although I take a lot of stories. And I can tell people, and this is the authentic side, when I am posting a picture, I'm making sure it looks pretty because it's gonna live on my Instagram forever. In theory, on stories, it doesn't have to look perfect. So I prefer that because I'm not a perfectionist. And so posts are actually harder for me because I'm like worrying about my content, what I'm writing, the spell checking it. On Instagram stories, you don't have to do that. People get and they like that it's in the moment. So this is how you turn it into money, is that you don't just do one thing, you think about the bigger picture, right? That's like the same thing as with farming, right? You can't just put something into the ground and not think about the full picture. So that's how marketing is. So this is the sales funnel. Most of you have probably seen this at some point if you ever took like a business class. So it goes down from... The first thing that you're trying to do when you do any sort of marketing is to make people aware of your product. So that's really the saying, hello, hi, right? And that's the very beginning. And then it's the interest. So it's like, hi, my name is Venise. And now you're a little bit more interested in what I'm gonna say. I've introduced myself to you. I might say, hi, my name is Venise and I'm a farmer. Well, now you're like really interested because you wanna hear all I have to say. And then I'm gonna say, okay, let me show you something cool. Let me show you my syrup that I make. Okay, now you're like starting to consider like, oh, what is this, right? And then I tell you all about my syrup, and then I say, do you wanna buy it? Like that's the funnel, okay? And you're trying to get people, as many people as you can, to go from the top to the bottom. And if you're not doing that, or not at least thinking about that when you're posting or when somebody walks up to your farmer's market booth, then you're missing a huge opportunity. And so when you're thinking about designing your booth or the email newsletter that you're sending or the Facebook post that you're making, try to think about how you're gonna go from awareness to action. Okay, so on a single, I use CSA because a lot of people do CSAs. You could use anything, I'm just using this as an example. So on a single platform, and of course I'm gonna use Instagram or Facebook. For me, they're interchangeable. this is kind of how you can think about making sure that you're hitting every single step. So for awareness, you're going to use hashtags so that people can find you, so that people who don't know about you can find you. Then you're going to use a location tag. A lot of people are like, cool, you're on Instagram, but like, I actually have a CSA and nobody from Minnesota is going to sign up for my CSA. Use the location tag. If you don't know how to do it, write it down and Google it. And then partner, maybe you have a drop point. Maybe there's another business in town that you partner with and they're your drop point. Ask them to share your content, partner with them. You don't live in a silo. And so now all of their followers now have access to your information and to your post, and they can potentially come down the funnel with you. So now you're gonna increase your interest. So take that picture and make it count. That's where like just taking kind of a dark picture is not what you wanna do if you're doing something big like announcing your CSA sign up. It's also your caption. So next the interest is like hi. So we've said hi with our hashtags, and then we're saying this is what it is. It gives them an idea. Okay, like vegetables, I get it. And now you're creating the desire. This is where your captions come in. And I think a lot of people are like, cool, carrots, and it's like a really short caption, and it actually does nothing for you. My captions are super long. They don't have to be, but maybe your post, every post, for the record, doesn't have to go through this sales funnel. So you can just do a post to build awareness, and that's it, and that's fine, because to make every post like this would be exhausting. But if it's something important, like a CSA sign up, then you should be thinking through this. So create a compelling caption. Tell your story about why you should join the CSA, and then utilize your story. So those 30-second videos, that's where I can tell you personally, like you're sitting in your living room, watching your favorite Netflix show, and I'm telling you about my CSA as if you're in front of me. And that's why people like videos. People don't like to read. They like to just sit. That's why people watch TV, right? So I like stories. And then what's your call to action? So if I was just using Instagram, then I would say, hey, direct message me if you're interested in being in the CSA. That's DM, if you see that, is direct message. And it means send me a message, and then I know that you're interested. Or there's a link in my profile. That's better because you should have a website. So click on the link in my profile to learn more. So that's a single platform.
Can I chime in really, really quick?
Yep.
So one of the things that frustrates me the most about Instagram as a business owner, and again, I don't have the business version, is that you can't post links in the comments,
Yep.
right? So if you want to, really you need a link if you're trying to sell something. The only place you can have a link, you can have one link for your website in your profile page. And I'm changing that all the time. Sometimes it's to my mailing list. Sometimes it's to whatever it is I'm trying to sell in that post. I'll go and change that first. So
There
it is more
are
work.
third-party apps that you can use, and they're called like Linktree is one of them. And it basically, that link goes to a link that has a link that you can put on every single photo. So then it's like you click on the link, and then it shows you something that looks similar to your Instagram, and it has every post, and then all of your posts can have different links. So I don't use it. I do the same thing as Micha, and I change mine out as I want them. I usually just send them to my homepage, and then on that homepage, I switch out my homepage so that has the different things that I want them to do based on what I'm doing in that season. Okay, so here's the toolbox. So now, like, we've got Instagram. Now we're using all of the tools on Instagram. But as you can see, like, even with Instagram, all you can really do is DM if that's your only one tool. So it'd be kind of like farming with just one tool. That would be really, really hard. And so instead, what we do is we do like what Micha was talking about, you use all the tools. So you can see when you layer different marketing tools on top of each other, then you get something that is a true like marketing experience for somebody. So this would be the same thing, only using multiple tools. So to build awareness, you think, what are all the tools that I can use to build awareness? Well, I'm going to do an Instagram post, I'm going to do a Facebook post, I'm going to do an email blast, and I'm going to post a blog, right? Maybe I'm even going to throw in press out there, and I'm going to throw some emails to some press people that I know and just see if it works, right? So these are things that, obviously, like I said, I don't do this for every single thing that I post, but when I'm trying to make money, then I think about these things because it's important. Like, that's what pays my bills. So then I'm going to create interest. And for me, that would be a landing page of some sort on my website that says, like, this is, if it was a CSA, it would be a CSA landing page that tells you all about the CSA. It would have beautiful photos on it, and it would give you a very basic overview. So that's going to be like, I'm interested in the CSA. Let me learn more. And then you're going to create the desire. So how are you going to get people to actually, like, think about purchasing, not just look at your fancy pictures? And so that's, maybe it's an early bird special. Maybe it's sign up for a preseason open house. Maybe I was just getting creative. And this is kind of what you can do, is like, when you have this kind of thought process and you can put these on a wall and you can think of, like, what's some things that would make this interesting? Maybe it's a schedule. I also think about, like, when I sign up for things, and schedule a phone call with the farmer, right? So you can just schedule a phone call right there, and I will call you at 12 o'clock and talk about the CSA. It puts the onus on them to think about how they want to engage with you, but you're giving them a bunch of different options. And then the action is sign up and give me your money. So make that very, very clear how they give you your money. And if it's online, great. If it's not, make it easy. That's one of the hardest parts, and I get it. Like, credit card processing payments and all of that is hard, but, like, make it easy for people to pay you. So then you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I got their money. But guess what? Your job's not done, because now you got to keep that customer. And so this is where Micha is talking about, like, okay, so I've got these customers. I'm actually selling out all the time, but, like, how do I keep them engaged? So I actually come from a recruiting background. This is like keeping the candidate warm, right? Like, they've committed to you, but maybe I also worked in college recruiting. And so we have to keep them warm all the way until they graduate, because they could still change their mind and go to Google or Facebook. And so this is the keeping your customer engaged throughout the life cycle, as long as they basically pay you again. So this is your onboard. What are you doing after they sign up or they give you your money to say thank you? So part of mine is when they get their product, they get one of these. And you'll see on the back, it literally says thank you. And it says, we appreciate your business. With your support, we're feeding our dreams and starving our fears. We wish the same for you and your family. And I write a little handwritten note on every single one that I send out. Next one is, we want you to be successful. So you've bought this from us, especially with CSAs. Like, especially if this is their first time being a part of your CSA, how are you making sure that they're successful and they have a great brand experience with your company? So this is what we're working on right now. I'll tell you, like, we're not great at this, and this is what we're building out for our business is recipes. Is that weekly recipes that you're giving your CSA members? Is it updates on what's happening with the farm? Is it open houses? How are you keeping them engaged through that process? And then expansion. So this is where you have CSA members are fully invested in your company. How are you reselling to them? How are you upselling to them? How are you questioning asking them, like, how can I further support this business? So is it, actually, if we're using the CSA, I'm just going to keep going. So these are some of the examples. I'll go back. Onboard was a welcome email. That should be an obvious one. When you get a new new member, send them a thank you and a welcome email. Maybe it's a Facebook group. This is something that I think a lot of farmers don't utilize. Facebook groups, they change their algorithm in Facebook, and they prioritize groups way more than pages. They want you to pay for advertising, so they're not going to prioritize your page, if you've noticed that at all. They like groups because they want people to interact with each other. So one of the ideas, if I had a CSA, I would create a Facebook group with all of my CSA members. Private group, only CSA members can join, and then they can share recipes, they can share what they're doing, they can share photos of what they're doing with their product. Retention, recipes of the week, weekly updates. You could do that right in your Facebook group if you wanted to. Expansion. So do your members get a discount on maybe an event you're hosting, or an event on maybe they're at the farmer's market and your CSA members get a 10% discount when they visit your farmer's market booth. Surplus crop sale. Everyone has surplus crops at some point, right? That you're like throwing away. Maybe your CSA members get a surplus crop sale. So you invite them and you say, hey, we have tons of carrots, come to the thing. to the farm stand or come pick them up. Pay online, even better, because you're collecting their money before they ever get to your place. And you can get an extra bunch of carrots, whatever it is. I don't do CSA, so. And then how are you getting them to tell their friends about your farm? Because word of mouth is the best marketing that you can ever get. And so please leave a review. Big one. How many people read reviews when you buy something on Amazon? You look at, are you going to go to a restaurant? Whatever it is, we all do. Even if you're making a recipe, right? Like you read it and you're like, oh, this only got 2 stars. It's going to be a nailed it situation. And so ask your customers to leave a review wherever you want to collect reviews. Google's a great one. There's a bunch of others. If our website has the ability to leave reviews on products. So we encourage our customers to leave a review on a product. Then referral code. So maybe there's a referral code that they could give their friends, and then their friends get a discount on your CSA. And then you feel cool because you're like, hey, I have this great CSA. If you want it, then you can get 10% for being my friend. And then how do you get them to become like an brand ambassador? So on Instagram, there's these things called brand ambassadors. Again, you can Google it. It's very complex. We are just looking into it, so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it, but it's essentially where you give people the ability to build your brand on Instagram. It is the way, if you've heard of an Instagram influencer, that is basically they've built tools because Instagram influencers are such a big deal. And a big way that all the big brands are marketing. And so they've built these tools, and you can use them as a farmer because they come with your Instagram account or your Facebook account. Okay, so my helpful reminder, and then we're all done, is that you can get a lot done with one screwdriver if you know how to use it, right? So if you know how to use a screwdriver super, super well, there's a lot that you can do. But an entire toolbox is worthless if you don't know how to use any of them. So if all of this feels very overwhelming, then I would say stick with what you know for now and just make it better. Make it convert to sales. Think about how you're getting it to convert to sales, and don't go adding Twitter if you've never tweeted in your life, right? And so I get that a lot, like, oh my gosh, I don't have time for this. Then just make time to do what you're doing well and what's working really, really well. I was talking to a farmer the other day, guy, older, and he's like, I don't know how to do any of this. Like, I have a flip phone, right? That's my dad. My dad still has a flip phone. And he's like, I don't know how to do any of it. I just show up to restaurants, and I just talk to the chef, and I bring my product, and that's what sells my product. I said, well, like, that's great. Like, you figured out what works for you. Just make that better. So maybe making that better is showing up and then leaving the chef or maybe you go and the chef's not there. So maybe you leave something with him and you create something that's printed and you leave it. You can still work that sales funnel no matter what works for you and your farm. It's just, you just have to think about it.
So this is kind of a question and kind of a comment. Something I've noticed on a lot of photos from farms is, and this could be professional photographers too, because they don't always see what you see, but what may look really artistic or lovely also sometimes looks like a dirty ass field edge with like so many weeds and like not something desirable. It's like, no, please do not show the like 20 feet of Queen Anne's lace at the end of that bed. Radical Farms, right? Radical Roots, if you notice that photo that they had up, they had just weeded the bed behind where they were taking the picture, and it makes a huge difference because you can see what the crop is. It looks beautiful, good color.
I have an answer for this. So one of the things that we did with Pierce County Fresh is that we gave 12 farmers professional farm photography. And every single one of those farmers was so worried about their fields. Oh, don't take a picture of that. It looks terrible. Well, the thing is, you're a farmer looking at other farmers' pictures. Your customers are not. They think Queen Anne's lace is beautiful. They don't know what a weed is versus, like, honestly, don't stress so much about that because your customers aren't. They just want to see you and what you're doing. So yes, you want your photo to have to be quality, but don't focus on the things that the average consumer is never going to see. Yeah. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Can you comment and contrast a free website and Google picking up it or not versus a paid website?
Do you mean paid in terms of like you're paying the platform or? Okay, so all of that falls under search engine optimization, and it is a tough nut to crack. And I would just say that in terms of picking it up, so this is kind of the awareness piece of like you want people to find you based on that. So when you're designing your website, it really has no idea how much. The amount of money that you pay for it doesn't influence search engine optimization. You could pay a lot of money to a website developer who doesn't know enough. So yeah, and honestly, the domain doesn't really matter that much either, because usually the free version has some sort of a name behind your name. So it's like Simple Goodness Farm. Actually, our domain, if you go to our store right now, it's simplegoodnesssisters.bigcommerce.com. And that's because we pay for the domain for simplegoodnesssisters.com, and then it just routes it to there, so it's not as important. I want people to go to my homepage before I go to my store because my homepage is much prettier than my store. The key to when you're building your website is think about what search words you want people to like. What are people searching to find you? And then use that in your text as you build out your photo captions, as you build out your text. So if you were thinking about like farm-raised pork in Ording, like Micha would have farm-raised, she would have pork, and she would have Ording or Puyallup or wherever. And so think about that. I even go as far as like I'm in Buckley, hour away from Seattle, but I put Seattle in my text sometimes, like, hey, we're a farm that's an hour south of Seattle, because I know that certain people are searching for Seattle.
However, it doesn't look very professional. It looks less professional if it's cleanfoodfarm.weebly.com.
It's true.
And I'm going to think that this is somebody who's maybe just starting out, which is fine, but maybe I want someone who's like on their game. And that person is going to be paying $30 a month for a website domain that doesn't have that in there.
Yeah. I pay for the other one, but that's the next thing, is that we'll pay for both now. But it's a lot, and so it depends on how many websites you have, and we just have 2, so we have to think about that. Thanks, guys.